Hello, Lewis Laval here, and I am joined with Peter Turner, and we have basically the same thoughts on a particular topic, and we've decided to sit down together and record the conversation that we have surrounding this topic, because I think that you will also get a lot out of this. Maybe your thoughts are similar and you've been heading in this direction, maybe not, but either way, hopefully throughout this conversation you'll find plenty of useful information, advice, ideas, tips, subtleties and routines.
Well, it's just great to be back in the chair.
It's great. It's so much fun.
I always say there's a few people I really enjoy jamming with, and you're one of those people. I've said it to you before. It's one of those things where we'll start going down a particular rabbit hole on a subject, and then ideas will pop up, and I'll go off down avenues that I never expected were possible. It always opens up my mind, and it keeps those neurological pathways and the cylinders in my mind opening and firing. You know what I mean?
So, it's so much fun. Every time we have a conversation, even if there's no cameras rolling, that same sort of thing happens. We just end up talking about different things, and you will have an idea and I'll have an idea about that idea, and you'll do the same, and it just keeps going. So it's so much fun. I love sitting down and jamming with you. I love chatting with you, and I love creating content like this with you, because I don't know, it's just so much fun. And it's really hard to find mentalism releases or products out there that have this kind of thing in them. It's always, here's the effect, here's the method, here's the gimmick that you might need. But there's so much more to the art of mentalism than that, and hopefully that's what we're providing here.
I think what's interesting about it is the way that we're approaching it, and it's not something that we've consciously thought about, but it's almost like we're consulting for somebody.
Yes, it is.
So it's like if we were sat in a chair and we were asked about this particular topic, and we had to sit with pads and we had to work on this type of stuff, this would be the outcome of those type of sessions.
100%.
And then what we'd do is we'd have a series of grand ideas and then whittle it right down to just the best few. But the only difference is that we're letting it all out there and letting you decide subjectively what's the best for you.
Yeah. Do you know what? That's a really interesting way of looking at it, because we have consulted for the same people in the past in certain situations, and that's what happens. We have these conversations. They will have an idea in mind of the type of effect or the thing that we're going for, and we're aiming towards that. But then when it comes time for them to choose the effect or the routine they want to do, there's so much left over that might not get used. Whereas, like you've just said, here we provide everything, and then anybody watching this can pick and choose the bits they like, the bits they don't like, and mix them together and make it something that's ultimately their own. So,
well, that's it. Do you want to tell them what today's subject is?
Today's subject is, and the reason why this subject has come up is because in not too long from now we've got the Blackpool Magic Convention coming up. And I remember last year while I was there, I was walking around in the dealer's hall, and everything was either electronic or an app. All of the latest, greatest toys and gadgets and gizmos were electronic in some way, and obviously they're amazing. Obviously they're really good. But at the same time, like, a lot of it is expensive, and that's understandable. It costs a lot of money because they take a lot of money to produce, and if they were really cheap, everybody would have them, and lay people would end up knowing the methods and learning how things work. So I understand the pricing of them. The problem with that is, though, sometimes there's I don't know about you, but for me, sometimes it feels like, oh, if I don't have this amazing piece of electronic mentalism, I'm not going to be the best I can be. Like, if I can get my hands on that, suddenly I'm going to be this amazing mentalist, because I'll be able to do what that thing can do.
Well, it does it for you, and that's the problem. I think that's the biggest problem. It's like, I have a really inherent fear of cars that drive themselves. And the reason I have that fear is because, one, I love the feel of the steering wheel. Two, I love a good V8 engine. And I love feeling the road underneath my feet and knowing that I'm the thing that's controlling this machine.
Yeah, of course.
And I'm so terrified of something driving me around, and it starts to take over to a point where I can no longer control the situation.
Yeah.
It's never going to have the same skill sets and the same mindset that I'm going to have. It's not going to be able to make emotional decisions. And I think that's the problem with a lot of props and a lot of apps and a lot of electronic mentalism, is that what happens in the middle of a performance when that fails.
Yeah.
And I think if you know analog versions of these digital effects or these electronic effects, then you're going to save yourself not only money, you're going to be able to save yourself time and effort. And if you're ever caught in a situation where you don't have your fancy gadget, you're still going to be able to replicate those results without the audience knowing any different.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's what the important thing is. So, this is not us bashing electronic mentalism. This is not us saying that you shouldn't buy apps. But what we are saying is that I'm saying, I don't know about you, but everything that can be achieved with apps, electronics, or electronic mentalism, I can replicate with analog methods.
Yeah.
And bet you that the audience, if you perform it well, wouldn't know the difference.
Yeah, of course not.
Because that's the only bit they don't see is the method.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's only the performer who is thrilled or who is enjoying the method and the cleverness of the electronics, because they know it exists. They know how good the tech is. Whereas the audience, they have no idea. And you might think, well, you know, if an electronic way of doing something might be cleaner, and you know, it might be. However, you don't always have the best. You've got to be able to put it into a good presentation, a good routine. You've got to have a good way of performing it. Like, fair enough, you can roll a die or have somebody roll a die and you instantly know what number it is. But you're so focused on knowing that number that where's the routine? And I see it all the time. They're revealing numbers. Roll it again, it's a 4. Roll it again, it's a 3. Fair enough. But where's the routine? Where's the story? Where's the journey?
Well, that's it. And just to go back over what you just said, and this is not to disagree with what you said, I don't think that the payoff is often worth the price. And what I mean by that is that these electronic effects, they have a compromise also.
Yeah.
So for example, you've got to charge die.
Yeah.
You've got to use a die. You've got to carry it around in this little box. If it's the Pro Mystic pens, is it Pro Mystic that do the colour match pens?
Yeah.
So you know, you've got to carry around a pot where the pens are pulled out of.
Yeah.
You've got to make sure your thumper's charged. You've got to make sure that, and how many times have you seen this? We've been on sets where microphones will be operating on a specific frequency, or cameras will, or monitors, and then it affects the electronic apps.
Yeah, well, I remember
electronic devices.
I did a corporate gig a few years ago with another mentalist, and right before we started performing, he said, "Oh, by the way, are you using any Pro Mystic devices? Because obviously, you know, the signals can mix." And I was like, no, nothing like that. And then he was kind of shocked. He'd forgotten why he'd asked me the question in the first place. And he was like, "What? You're not using this? You're not using this?" And I was like, "No, stack of billets and a Sharpie."
And the only difference is, I think, and Mark and I talk about this quite a lot, Mark Lemon, is that the only difference between electronic mentalism and analog mentalism, when you really dial in on it, is you're just moving the place that the compromise exists. That's all. Because there's got to be a compromise.
Of course.
It might be that the spectator's using your phone. It might be that a spectator has to visit a particular website. That's a compromise. It might be that a spectator has to choose a long word from a list of words that's on a website.
Yeah.
That's a compromise. It might be that a spectator, I mean, with the die, they have to use your dice. Now, I know that people aren't walking around carrying dice, but you do that enough. If you find yourself in social situations where you're performing in bars, it's not going to be too long before somebody takes hold of a dice from behind the bar, or a board game at a working men's club or something like that, and goes, "Well, can you guess what number's on the dice now?" And then you have to make some sort of excuse. An impression device, you know, like, yeah, it seems clean, but they're writing it inside your wallet, or they're taking some device of yours to write it on anyway. And whilst you're taking the device back, and they're keeping hold of the piece of paper, to them, if you briefly touch a billet for a second, they're not going to know the difference.
No, not at all.
There's no difference, especially with some of the techniques that are available that we'll be sharing on this project.
Yeah. Because, and you know, now that you mentioned that, thinking about it, like, so I do have an electronic die. I used it in my seance show. The problem with that is the public, the general public, understand that dice are cheap. You can buy them, you know, they cost nothing. You can give them away. But an electronic die isn't. But you can't let them know that it's expensive. So if they wanted to keep it, or if they lost it or dropped it, there's an expensive piece of technology gone. And the funny thing is, for a little while, I went through this phase of I wanted nice, luxurious items to perform with. So I wanted my billets in a nice leather holder. Nothing gimmicked in any way, just in a nice leather holder. I wanted a stainless steel Sharpie rather than just a standard one. And you know, loads of little accessories like that. And the problem is, I thought I was doing something nice by handing people this quite luxurious stainless steel Sharpie. But then the amount of people that would just turn around and go, "Oh, it's the pen. It must be the pen." Every single time a participant had a guess at how I'd done something because I had this stainless steel pen, they'd go, "Is it the pen?" And so I stopped using this really nice pen because I wanted to stop people from doing that. Or, "Oh, it's got to be the pen," and "Oh yeah, I know the exact tech that's inside that pen." There's no tech inside the pen, but I can't let you keep it because it's the only one of those pens I have, and it wasn't the most expensive pen, but I'm not just going to hand you that because you think it's electronic. So I'd open it up and show them, and they'd still think it's hidden. So I went back to using regular Sharpies, and if someone thinks it's the pen, I can say, "Well, why don't you keep it?" And of course, it's much easier to just give them a Sharpie.
And that's the thing with this. I'm not to interject there.
Oh yes,
I was about to say that's the thing with this project, is that we'll show you how to do what you can do with electronic dice, with regular dice, and if somebody wants to keep them, give them. They cost you nothing, 10 pence.
Yeah.
If it's a piece of card or a pen, you can borrow that.
Yeah, exactly.
There's certain psychological aspects and that you can perform, and if you want to do a witch hand routine, you know, you're going to be able to do that with objects that are in their pocket, and it doesn't have to be a coin. You're not limited by what it is, and you could still achieve the exact same results if you wanted to tack things on at the top of that, the same way that you would using your expensive devices.
Of course, because the thing, like with the expensive devices, if you can do the cleanest billet peak ever, and somebody suggests that it's your pen, you know, it could be a standard Sharpie, but if they think it's the pen and it's not, then with a lot of electronic mentalism nowadays, if they suggest it's the pen, they're not wrong. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
like,
not only that, if they say, well, go on then, take a pen out of the bag, do it with this pen.
Yeah,
With
exactly.
billet peak you could.
Yeah,
With one of these devices, it might be that it's got something loaded in the tip that's what makes it work.
yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. So if you've got an electronic pen that's doing something for you, like, it's not out of the arena of possibility for people to think it must be something to do with the pen. Imagine just eliminating that entirely and being able to say you can keep that pen if you want.
Yeah, and that's it. And I think what's really important with this is that, again, we're not bashing any electronic props.
No, not at all.
Because we do use them. There's going to be an app that we talk about later. It's an app that I've used. I do use it when I'm doing corporate performances. I know that you've got a couple of things that you use. But what this is about is teaching you how you can do this stuff when you've got nothing. Teaching you how you can easily replicate, and in a lot of cases actually perform a more astounding effect using borrowed items that match the quality of the electronic performances that you're going to perform.
I think that's the key here. And at the same time, you know, having the knowledge, like, the electronic devices, they are expensive, and if you buy them all, suddenly you're spending all kinds of money, and then you've got to do enough gigs to just earn that back so they pay for themselves. With this, these are cheap, you know, billets and pens and things like that you can acquire anywhere, that's just so cheap. As long as you've got the knowledge there, then you'll be able to do all of this amazing stuff anyway. And to go back to what I said at the start, if you find yourself in a situation where an amazing electronic device comes out and you think, oh, if only, maybe I'll save up for that, if only I had that, then I'd be able to do this. Truth is, you can do it. Just with a little bit of creative thought and taking a different approach, if you want to achieve the same effect that this bright new shiny toy does, you can absolutely do that without buying the expensive prop.
But we'll teach you the formula later on how to objectively look at anything that comes out and then tick certain boxes so you know what techniques you need to use to be able to do that. And then once you're doing it and you've gone out and tried it, you can ask yourself one question: do I really still need to buy this electronic prop? And I think that's a good introduction. I think it tells them what this project is, what it's about. It gives our philosophies. It talks about the things that we think of when it comes to this stuff, that we're not denouncing this stuff. If you've got this stuff, great, continue to use it, learn this stuff as a backup. But if you don't want to spend that money, we're here to save you money so that you can do this stuff with borrowed items in the real world, and the quality of the performances will be the same.
Amazing. So let's jump right into it.